Roque says the deal with China's Sinovac is a done deal. This after vaccine czar Carlito Galvez told senators last week that the country may still opt out of the agreement. Appearing before the lower house this time, Galvez is calling for the passage of a Bayanihan 3. He wants a new measure to include an indemnification clause required by the COVAX facility. With the U.S. just days away from a transfer of power, law enforcers are bracing for violent protests. They have intensified security at the U.S. Capitol and a number of state capitol grounds. And they're set to inspire the Filipino youth to shine through this 2021. Global superstar BTS is the newest endorser of Smart as they headline the telco's Live Smarter, Live with Purpose campaign.
Simple Smart Ako.
Let's start with the local FDA waiting on Pfizer's final report after some elderly residents in Norway died after receiving their shots. How might this affect the pharmaceuticals recently approved emergency use authorization in the Philippines? Greg Gregorio has the big story.
The Department of Health is closely monitoring Norway's investigations on the reported deaths of 29 elderly nursing home residents after receiving Pfizer and BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine shots. The DOH says they will ask the company to submit a report on the matter.
Parang sinasabi nila that this might just be coincidental because the patients are severely ill and baka kahit yung minor lang na reactions dun sa bakuna ay nakaapekto sa kanila.
In an interview with Radyo 5 Ted Filon, Dr. Edsel Salvania, member of the DOH Technical Advisory Group, noted that all side effects of COVID-19 vaccines are monitored. Recall that allergic reactions in some individuals have also been recorded in the UK and US after receiving Pfizer's vaccine.
Pero these are just a handful, isa-isa, dala-dalawa. Hindi pa po siguro aabot sa 50 or at most 100 yung mga nagkaroon ng serious infections. Pero iniimbestigahan po lahat ito para siguradong ligtas po yung bakuna.
Salvania also noted that 400 elderly persons have reportedly died in Norway at a given time, even without the vaccine. Just last week, the FDA gave the first emergency use authorization or EUA to Pfizer. Among the conditions is to only use their shots on ages 16 and above. In a statement, FDA Director General Eric Domingos said they will revise the conditions of the EUA given to Pfizer accordingly, depending on the results of the ongoing investigations in Norway. For the meantime, the current EUA given to Pfizer remains. Pfizer BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine is part of the vaccine portfolio prepared by the government for the target mass inoculation in the Philippines. Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. had earlier mentioned the said vaccine might arrive in the country next month through the WHO's COVAX initiative. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
The World Health Organization has listed at least 180 COVID-19 vaccine candidates being developed throughout the world. All have one goal: to produce antibodies so that the body can fight the real virus when it finally does come. The vaccines under development come in two broad categories: those using the whole microbe approach, either through an inactivated or weakened form of the virus, and those in the genetic route, using the newer messenger RNA technology. The first type is the oldest type, first used in 1796 by Edward Jenner against cowpox. Doctors inject viruses that were killed using chemicals, heat, or radiation into a person, or they could use attenuated viruses which are weakened and unable to cause sickness. The dead or weakened virus then triggers the body to produce antibodies so that when a real virus comes, it already knows what to do. This method is tried and tested and in many ways considered safe. But it takes a long time to produce because live viruses have to be safely cultivated and then killed. It is usually more expensive and it will require multiple doses. Now, the second method is a bit more complex. Instead of using a whole virus, doctors take the genetic code from pieces of a dead virus and then inject these into a person. This code teaches human cells to make a protein that triggers immune response. Compared to traditional vaccines, mRNA vaccines are relatively easier to make. As it's cheaper, it is more cost-effective for large-scale production. Being a relatively new technology, however, there are still safety concerns to be observed and to be addressed. Injecting specific virus particles also could trigger a more specific immune response. This means mRNA vaccines might offer less protection against COVID-19 virus compared to traditional vaccines. But in the end, the virus is only a year old, and scientists are still trying to determine just how much they still do not know. Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez says there may be need for a third installment of the Bayanihan Act, specifically to aid vaccine recipients should inoculation go awry. Health Chief Francisco Duque insists, though, that vaccines approved by authorities have undergone stringent review. Ria Fernandez has this report.
The government seeks to indemnify Filipinos who will experience serious side effects from anti-COVID vaccines. In today's House briefing, Deputy Minority Leader Carlos Zarate pried who will be responsible should immunization go wrong for some individuals. Immediate response lies with the Health Department, says Secretary Francisco Duque.
Kaya nga po kanina na banggit ko kung pwede po i-legislate yung indemnification fund para mapondohan ang programa nito. So, our people, the individuals who will experience serious side effects can be adequately compensated.
The indemnification clause is also part of the government's deal with the COVAX facility. It strips any liability off of the manufacturers unless there is willful neglect on their end. Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez thinks a legislation may be needed to address this.
Alalahanin po natin, meron po tayong 40 million na doses na nakasalalay po dito. Mas maganda po sana, yun po ang inano namin, ang karoon ng Bayanihan 3, na isama na rin po yung indemnification clause.
Galvez says the initial rollout of vaccines via the COVAX facility is set to begin this February. Some 22 million Filipinos stand to benefit from it. The COVAX shots come on top of the 148 million doses eyed for purchase by the government. Galvez reiterated that the approach for procuring vaccines has always been centralized to better negotiate lower prices for bulk orders. He denied claims that government has a monopoly on procurement efforts, leaving LGUs to fend for themselves.
Given there is not enough supply yet, the Philippine national government approach is to pool national volumes to get a seat at the negotiating table and secure the most number of vaccines at the best prices.
Duque also appealed to the public to trust the authorities' choice of vaccines since they have passed the rigorous review of experts. Dr. Edsel Salvana of the UP National Institutes of Health also noted the high efficacy rates of the shots from Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and even China-made Sinovac in preventing the development of severe infections.
Pinaka-importante po talaga na ma-deploy natin yung mga vaccines that can prevent severe disease. At ang bakuna na nakaka-prevent ng severe disease ay makakapababa sa panganib ng pagkamatay sa ating vulnerable population.
Vad Salvana reminds recipients to still observe minimum health standards since the vaccines can only do so much. For News 5, Ria Fernandez, We Are One News.
Can the Philippines still back out of its deal with China's Sinovac? Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez told senators last week, yes, the deal can still be scrapped, but top government spokesman Harry Roque says, no, it's a done deal. In a briefing earlier, Roque said the country is under a binding obligation to purchase 25 million shots from the drug maker. There has been growing concern from the public and lawmakers over Sinovac's efficacy rate and real price. Senator Ping Lacson had questioned why it costs around 240 pesos per dose in Indonesia, but is reportedly being priced at more than 1,800 pesos for the Philippines. Roque says it will not go beyond 700 pesos.
Ang sabi ni Secretary Galvez, mahigit kumulang kapareho tayo ng presyo ng Indonesia.
Yan po ay mahigit kumulang 650 per dose, hindi po lalampas ng 700. So tingin ko po yan ang presyong BFF talaga. No? At inaasahan po natin na the best price will also be accorded to the Philippines.
We'll go for a quick break. When the big story returns, this story might send your blood pressure rising. Price of local pork has increased to as much as 430 pesos per kilo. The reason for the spike after the break. And what if your social media engagements can buy you luxury goods? An app supposedly will do exactly that, but at what cost? The details later. Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. The Philippines is expecting more pork imports to arrive in the country in the first quarter as the local pork industry continues to suffer due to African swine fever. Shiloh Francisco with the details.
Pork retailers at the Mega Q-Mart complain their customers now prefer imported meat. That's after prices of local pork once again increased by 20 to 30 pesos to as much as 430 pesos a kilo. Imported pork are now sold in wet markets and is cheaper by around 100 pesos a kilo.
Siyempre, pagka yung murang tinda nila, yung iba hindi nakakaintindi, basta mura doon sila. Eh yung paano kami?
Pag nakita mo naman imported, itsura nila parang iba na itsura. Kaya lang iba siyempre, yung kaya nilang bilhin, nakakaawa naman, bibilhin kahit na imported. Hindi katulad ng press, kakainin mo na sariwa.
But more pork imports are on their way.
Pinapabilis po natin din yung pagdating ng yung na under the minimum access volume na 54,000 metric tons. Dapat pumasok na itong February o Marso para mayroon tayong pangdagdag na supply.
The DA is even mulling increasing the cap on pork imports to 162,000 metric tons, meaning more pork imports will be under the 30% tariff compared to 40% outside minimum access volume. This is the DA's solution to fears that prices may spike some more, especially after the Visayas recorded its first case of African swine fever in Abuyog Leyte last week. Pork producers welcome the DA's move.
Kaya ganun kataas dahil kulang ang pork, no? That's why mataas siya ngayon. Kulang yung supply.
And also,
for the Meat Importers and Traders Association, increasing pork tariff may help local retailers. But lowering the tariff by half, on the other hand, could help lower prices faster for consumers.
30% to 15%, 10-15%. Is a good reduction. Now this one will translate easily to a 15 to 20 peso reduction in the landed cost.
The Samahang Industriya ng Agrikultura or SINAG says it's unlikely for pork prices to go down anytime soon.
Ang laki na nawala almost 5.8 million heads na out of 13 million heads. Talagang tight naman ang stocks dito. No?
As for mechanically deboned meat, President Duterte has already signed an executive order retaining tariff at 5%. The product is used for making processed meat. SINAG says this is unfortunate as the government chose to forfeit a possible 20 billion peso worth of revenues that could help provide anti-COVID vaccine to the agriculture sector, something that the DA is aiming for farmers.
Mga magsasaka ay considered din sila na frontliners. So, isasangguni po natin sa gobyerno na mabakunaan din ang mga farmers. There are about 11 million farmers.
Secretary William Dar says increasing the tariff now could lead to a price increase in processed products. Shaila Francisco, VR1 News.
Now, can you buy a car or even afford a trip just by raising your engagement on social media? That's the promise of fast-rising app Laika, but is the hype too good to be true? As Camille Samonte finds out in this report, it might actually come with a lot of security risks. Let's watch this.
Couple Kenneth and May have been using Laika for almost a year. They've been hooked into the Silicon Valley in Hong Kong-based mobile app because it incentivizes users via a digital point system. Engagements on the platform, whether it via sharing of posts or interactions with co-users, may yield gems. These gems can be exchanged for goods and services. 1 gem is equal to a peso.
Akala namin nung una scam siya, parang scam. Kaya hindi po namin seryoso.
Yes.
Pero habang patagal, nung quarantine po, nung na-lockdown po kasi kami sa Manila ng ilang month, walang taping din, walang trabaho. Si Laika po yung, parang siya po yung tumutulong sa amin para makakain po.
Not only are they able to buy weekly groceries, the gems allow them to afford personal luxuries.
Itong phone na to, iPhone 11, sa Gadgets Manila. Ayan. Ano sila? Tsaka itong kwintas na suot ko.
Oo.
Yan. Phonable na gold. Laika gems po yan yung gamit namin.
Adding to its popularity are celebrities and social media personalities. Ivana Alawi bought a 3 million peso car using her gems. Liza Soberano also spent gems for a vacation in Siargao with her family. But is the app too good to be true, or does it come with risk? According to its information in Google Play Store, Laika may read a user's contacts, determine GPS location, and read, modify, and delete USB content. It may also change network connectivity, disable screen lock, change audio settings, draw over other apps, and prevent the device from sleeping. A cybersecurity expert warns the app may be surveilling users.
The moment you download and install the app, you are actually providing access to your whole smartphone, where your photos, your videos, and other information is in there. And who knows, it can also access your contacts.
Angel Redoble, PLDT's Chief Information Security Officer, asked whether Laika is compliant with data privacy laws in its place of origin. In a Reddit post, a Laika user claims that his iPhone's camera and microphone suddenly worked when logged on. But in a statement, Laika CEO Ryan Baird says it's supposedly a glitch, which they have already fixed months ago. The company also assures data confidentiality. For Redoble, using Laika does not necessarily mean they're giving developers full consent.
It is also a matter of legal matters, right? Like if I downloaded and used the app, it is not automatic that I gave my permission for you to extract and use and even trade my personal information.
But ultimately, Redoble says users are responsible for the apps they use. For News 5, Camille Samonte, we are One News.
We'll take another break. When the big story returns. The U.S. is just days away from formally inaugurating Joe Biden as the next president. How are security efforts going for Transition Day? Find out next. And as expected, it is the top trending topic on Twitter. Members of Grammy-nominated group BTS are the newest faces of Smart. Details after this break. Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Much to the dismay of the Commission on Elections, only 1 million new voters have registered so far this month, well below its target of 5 million. Jen Calimon has the full story.
There are only 8 months left before the voters' registration for the 2022 national elections closes. But since registration resumed on January 4, only 1 million out of the expected 5 million new voters have registered. Commission on Election spokesperson James Jimenez attributes the low turnout to the limited operating hours of COMELEC offices due to the pandemic. COMELEC offices are only open Monday to Thursday from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. But the COMELEC officials said they are looking into opening satellite offices by the end of the month.
With close to 4 million registrations still expected to be processed, it's becoming very crucial, becoming very critical that we basically get a move on. No? So hopefully, by the end of this month nga, makapag-roll out na tayo ng mga satellite registration.
The National Movement for Free Elections, or NAMFREL, also acknowledges that the pandemic hampers the registration of Filipinos overseas and those who had gone home to their provinces. But the Legal Network for Truthful Elections say the pandemic should not hamper the conduct of polls.
Kita naman po natin in other countries, mga kapitbahay natin, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Singapore, nakakapag-eleksyon naman eh.
For election watchdog Contra Daya, the real threat for the conduct of the 2022 elections is the proposed charter change.
The current proposal to change the charter may result in the postponement or even the cancellation of the 2022 elections if some legislators would have their way in lifting their term limits.
Carito said electoral competitiveness is also one of the problems during the polls, especially in the local race where only few candidates run in a post. And in some cases, a candidate has no contender at all. Because of this, Carito said some Filipinos are left with no choice but to vote for a candidate they barely know. COMELEC and NAMFREL are also keen on using social media platforms for voters' education.
I've seen some voters' education using TikTok. I've seen, of course, you see YouTube being the most popular choice for voters' education. And we were convincing people in the legislature to institutionalize it. I think a couple of years ago.
Voters' registration will be open until September 30, 2021. For News 5, Jen Calimon, we are One News.
Authorities have started beefing up security measures in the days leading to the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden. State capitals have likewise ramped up security as they brace for violent protests. So far, only a handful of protesters took to the streets of Minnesota and Ohio and other states as of Sunday. Now, let's recall that security officials have warned against the possibility of more protests as Biden formally takes office on January 20. The Capitol building, which was stormed by a pro-Trump mob on January 6, has been fenced off with police officers on duty to keep people away. Some 25,000 National Guard troops are now stationed there. Let's look at the big stories in sports. A look at the game with Paulo De Rosario.
Thanks, Robbie. Dallas Mavericks star Luka Doncic records his 29th career triple-double today, surpassing Michael Jordan on the all-time triple-double list. The third-year NBA player starts off red-hot from the... Be sure to catch the NBA regular season action tomorrow on NBA TV Philippines. And that's it for the latest in the sports world. Catch us again later at 9:30 p.m. on One News and One Sports Plus. My name is Paulo De Rosario. This has been The Game. Back to you, Robbie.
Thank you, Paolo. Now it's official. Grammy-nominated group BTS will headline Smart Communications' Passion with Purpose campaign. Smart's biggest campaign to date is set to be released sometime this first quarter. In a short clip released this afternoon, BTS members RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook announced their much-awaited collaboration with Smart. Smart President and CEO Al Panlilio said they hope the brand's newest ambassadors will inspire more Filipino youth to find purpose in everything they do. Chairman Manny V. Pangilinan also encouraged the youth to be like BTS and make the world a better place through their passion with purpose. Smart earned the top spot on Twitter's Philippine Trends list shortly after releasing BTS announcement video.
We're here to support Smart's global of inspiring people to live their lives with passion and purpose, no matter the challenges that lie ahead. And with that, we're proud to announce
Simple Smart Ako.
And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. Signal channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, you can visit our webpage. That's onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News. Good evening.